Now, O Muslims, arise from your slumber. There's about 2 billion Muslims on this planet, yet we constitute only about 1% of the intellectual power of the world. You find that important scientific discoveries, invention of new surgical techniques, development of drugs used for alleviation of suffering and pain, space exploration, these all belong to the West. The most advanced theoretical concepts, which we haven't put into practice yet, these appear in prestigious journals, and again, you find only non-Muslim names. Now we ask ourselves the question, why it is so? The Quran states, chapter 24:55, it says that God will make you rulers of the earth if you implement and you study the Quran. And this has been demonstrated, in the past, in the 8th to the 12th century. The Muslims brought about the greatest intellectual revolution in the history of the human species. They laid the foundation of all the sciences. Now, the big question, of course, is that what is the cause? Why this demise? What caused this sliding down into the abyss? The short answer, there's a number of reasons, but the short answer to this is that we have distanced ourselves from the Quran. By the way, when God says that we will make us rulers of the world, doesn't mean that we must subjugate people and deprive them of their natural resources, but rather to create just societies and implement a fair and just economic and political system. Anyway, so we've distanced ourselves from the Quran. We still read the Quran, but we recite it. And if you ask any Muslim that who is the author of the Quran, he will tell you it's God. But you can't prove that it's God because he hasn't studied the Quran. Now, the problem is that in any Muslim's home, there's a Quran, but it's not being studied or being implemented. And what has happened now is that other non-Quranic books have taken the place of the Quran. People are now following not the Quran, but these other books. And these books are full with contradictions, scientific errors, immoral statements, yet people cling to it. So what these books have done have, caused stagnation of Muslim society. What should we do to turn around this big problem? And the short answer is we must start, reading the Quran ourselves. Equip ourselves with the knowledge of the Quran, and then start reading it and discussing it with our children and our wives and our families. And then after doing that, we should confront the Islamic educational system, especially the teachers in the madrasah schools, which I suggest, the chief requirement should be that they should at least have a secular degree, especially in science, so that they can teach the children the principles of the Quran. And we know that a large part of the Quran is about science. So introduce the Quran as early as possible into these schools and stop, reading stories to these children, stories that are not authenticated, that creates a kind of a fairy tale world. And I'm sure by doing this, it will be the start of us changing ourselves and hopefully retain our former glory.